Okay. Just over the weekend, something weird happened to the tech industry, and the tech industry was just like going down in simple terms. It had one of the biggest issues that I'll call like the biggest issues ever. We should try to understand that we saw Nvidia look almost making over 450 billion US dollars, and by the end of the day, it lost over 600 billions US dollars, which leaves us in a bazaar mode. Just to understand in simple concept, per hour, it gained 19 billion US dollars, and per hour almost ended itself the day by losing 19 billion US dollars, which is kind of bizarre and something that we should try to reconcile, or we should try to underlook. This indicates a lot of things. You should try to understand that, just for information, just so you know, the tech or the investment industry is almost responsible for 4% of the GDP growth. Or you should try to understand that it's responsible for 92% of the US GDP growth. That means without the AI investment that has been taking place in the US, the US would find itself in an area where we should try to understand it, where it has been, it should be in a recession as we speak of right now. It should be in a way or character where one will call it to be kind of a slow growth economy. Well, we have to understand that the US economy is an economy of the capitalists. It's a capitalist kind of economy. It's not like China, where the government gets involved most of the times. However, the debt is shared with the public. We should try to understand that one of the best performing tech companies in the US has been always been Nvidia, almost having a market cap of $4 trillion, which many are trying to say by the next 10 years, it should be around 10 to 20 trillion US dollars, which kind of bazaar, which leaves me in a kind of a bazaar mode. Because we should try to understand, how is Nvidia making money? How do they reach this point of making like such returns and such losses at the same time? And Nvidia CEO once came up and said, if you can make a loss of over $500 billion just within a day, that means you're worth a lot. Well, it could be worth a lot, but if you're losing such money in a day, I imagine if you lose it for 7 days, how much will you be worth? We should also try to understand that such amount of money leaves us in a cautionary mood, leaves us in a bazaar moment where one should ask one another, like, is this the right channel? Would anyone be like really happy to be looking that? We should also try to understand that such a move indicates a lot in the stock market, indicates a lot of what will be many are calling the AI bubble. But the biggest picture will be like, if this is the original AI bubble. Let's look at Nvidia inventories. Nvidia has inventories today over 20 billion. They are just raising over and over. They're saying they're selling, but in actual sense, their inventory is sitting. One of the major reasons why the inventory is sitting is because of China. China today stopped buying any US chip or coming out from the US. And trust me, China was the second customer for the US, or actually the first customer, the biggest importer for the US goods, especially in the chip industry. However, ever since they started having the war between Huawei, having the trade war within China and the US, that indicated a few factors. One of the few factors we should try to understand that one that came along, that came with the tech industry. As I speak of right now, Nvidia is getting replaced by companies like Alibaba. Companies like Alibaba, we have companies like Baidu. Such companies are going to be replacing Nvidia in simple terms. One of the main reasons, the intermarriage or the interdependence between the US and China is just showing red flags. They are trying their level best to divorce one another. They are doing their level best to say that they leave each other behind in simple terms. They leave one another behind. They leave each other without having a story to tell behind. Because as of today, I speak, China is trying to do everything in house, from chips, as we saw the war between the rare earth materials, the war for the semiconductors in simple terms. This kind of war indicated a barrier between the US and China, actually a competition. And this is not just any other normal competition, because we still have open markets. This is a competition of open and close, where if I own something, you must not own it. Where if I have something, I must not sell it to you. If I own something, that's mine, and that's it. That's all. It's no longer a trading market. It's a market of ownership and empowerment in simple terms. In terms of geopolitics, it means the interdependence between China and the US is at a caliber of ending. It's on a dialogue where I would be calling it to be. It's on an enclosure where there's a red line that's being created between the two countries, because these are the two power tech countries we should try to understand. However, going back, the AI bubble has many indicated to be the AI bubble. We should try to understand one more factor. If Nvidia is really performing well, where is it getting the money from? Well, Nvidia gets money from other companies, we say, like other US tech companies that are buying its products. Those are indicating OpenAI, Microsoft, Tesla, others. I would say the Magnificent Seven has the being called Tesla, Microsoft, Amazon, everything. Companies that are trying to do their best to invest in AI. But there's a dilemma between these countries, and we should understand why there's a dilemma. See, these companies are not actually profitable. If you look at OpenAI or ChatGPT, ChatGPT almost lost how much money, just in simple terms? ChatGPT alone almost lost 12 million just in the past quarter. Losing almost over 12 millions. If you look at the performance of these companies, they don't, and this is a company that's almost willing to spend over $1 trillion and just collecting over 12 billion, not even 100 billion. I mean, if you're spending $1 trillion, I expect you to be making at least a half of that if you're performing bad. But it seems to be the opposite. There's an intermarriage that's taking place between these companies, and these companies, they have what I would call a good relationship, hold one another so that we don't sink into the water. That's how it feels like. See, Nvidia is a tech company, and it's the only profitable company I will call profitable. But it's profitable for one reason, because it's buying shares in this in these other smaller tech companies that are not making money right now. In the long run, maybe the payoff will come out, which is a better idea, because holding one another, supporting one another is a good ideology. Because if they were not supporting one another, then things would have been maybe bad. However, the question is, how long can they hold one another? How long can they stand with one another to see that they are trying to collect enough money for one another? And that's where things become kind of bizarre. Because if you look at the relationship, where you would be expecting the US to be having better relationship with China and expecting to be making more sales in China so that they could have foreign currency coming in. Such countries like China today are doing their level best to stop buying decreasing the treasury, their treasury holdings. They are doing their level best to be interdependent on the US dollar. Today, countries that will be buying the US debt are buying gold in simple terms. There's a doubt in the US currency that's taking place. Just so you know, we should also remember the DeepSeek introduction. This was an AI that was made for free. and it was made just for over, I had around $6 million. That's how much they spent from rate. I may be wrong about that figure, but we should try to understand that China released such an AI after Trump had announced saying that the US tech, US should be the number one country in the US tech. China came up with a whistleblower, and that was DeepSeek. And you know what that did to the US stocks? You don't need me to remind you about that. But we should be asking ourselves, does this indicate a US bubble? Well, yes and no at the same time. Because all this should be seen in simple terms like we have seen many memes where one said showing that Nvidia is holding the US economy as the rest of the economy is sleeping, which is not just a joke but actual facts. If it wasn't for Nvidia, maybe the US would have been in a recession. If it wasn't for Nvidia, the US economy would be finding itself stagnant. However, the rest of the economy is kind of in a stagnant kind of economy. We should also try to understand the US economy is in a structure where we should try to understand that it's not actually growing. It's actually finding itself in a dilemma. The US economy is like putting wood in its own way, in simple terms. It's finding itself in a way where one should try to understand that it's not really moving forward, but it's finding itself in a way of a dilemma where one should try to indicate it has an economy that kind of in a kind of a bazaar mode. You should try to understand. Chances of seeing growth are less. The fear factor is rising. However, does this indicate the US economy is in a bubble mode? I still give you a yes and no answer because we cannot predict the future until the markets show the actual indicators. As for now, all I can say, thank you for watching. See you in the next one.